Hey everybody, Jordan here. The PH is silent, and I decided to buy groceries today, take care of the family, and then I went and played some D&D. So it's late at night. I want to get this done, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on it. So let's dive in to our 30-day world challenge. I've got Notion up. I'll rotate it here so you can see, obviously. But we're gonna answer some. There's a plot hook question because again, this web writer challenge is for a novel, and then we're gonna talk about evil races. So specifically, we switch over. The plot hook section is like, what question are you trying to ask with your novel? And that's big because I wonder if I'm thinking about other campaign settings. Like let's look at Eberron, for example. I guess I know enough about Eberron, but I don't. And I think Eberron is more well written than the Realms because it was intentionally made as a campaign setting, as opposed to this like we're creating it on the as we build it kind of a thing. So, what question is Eberron trying to ask? And there's a lot of questions within Eberron, like how do you treat creatures that may or may not have souls? Do Warforged have souls? That could be the question of your whole campaign. What is the nature of religion and the being alienated if you have a dragon mark tattoo or if you have not a dragon mark tattoo, and like there's like race and class. There's a lot of stuff within Eberron that you can play off of. So having a question like this, like what do you want to ask in your novel? I don't know how well it translates to a single line for a campaign setting. But if I want to do that for Eberron, I think the question I want to ask would be, what happened with the Day of Mourning? And specifically, so if you're not familiar with Eberron, I'll put a link in the corner, and you can check out my playlist. But specifically with Eberron, they left that question unanswered. There is no canon answer for what happened with the Day of Mourning, just some catastrophe, and that threw the rest of the world in disarray and stopped the war. So what happened? What has the power to stop the war? What's keeping everyone in fear? And for Endagar, what would that be? What would be that huge thing? So real talk here. I come from a theater background, and one of my professors in college, he had a really great exercise, not really an exercise, but just something that he did, which was every time he directed a play, before the table read, before everything, like your cast, and he'd get the whole crew together and he'd say, here is the word, the feeling, or the sentence that I want to convey to the audience. And he would say that to everybody working on the production. So we all knew, not necessarily like, well, what's your vision, but like, oh, like you want to convey this. And that simple act allowed all of the players and the crew to be in sync in a way. And I haven't worked with a lot of directors since then that do that, but it's something that I really respect because, and I've incorporated when I direct, because I really like, not like this is a theme or whatever, but just like, this is when I read this play, this is what invokes in me. And it's kind of the driving question behind all of that. And any piece of art can have this. So thinking about Endagar, and we're really focusing on pact magic, and we're really focusing on being in debt to a god or personal gain in a way. There's a mechanic I haven't spoken of yet where I want to have a devil's bargain, because if pact magic is so open, perhaps there is a mechanic in the game. Well, so there's a mechanic in a lot of tabletop RPGs called Devil's Bargain, where you can succeed on a die roll, but it's a bargain with another entity, and they'll allow you to succeed on that die roll, but in exchange you lose something. So that coupled with pact magic and stuff, like what will you do for power, what will you do for a lot of things, I think that boils down to, and I wrote it here as you can probably see, it says, what will you sacrifice in order to succeed? And from a character perspective, I think that would be really good for your players to know. So maybe if I was starting an Endagar game, I would say something that you should know about your character that you're building is, what will your character sacrifice to succeed? And is that the other party members? I think it's just as interesting to say, I would sacrifice my party member. And then also it's just as interesting to say, I will never betray my friends, not for anything. And those are two extremes, but they have very, very interesting stories tied to those extremes. And if you know that about your character up front, you'll know when the DM puts you in a certain situation, how you'll react. Because if your entire mission is to find, that herb that will save your dying sister, then when you're approached with, well, I'll give you the herb, but it's going to cost you, the lives of these people, or maybe not even think something like that. Maybe a winter for 10 years or something. And you're just like, well, I'm willing to do that because it will save my sister. This is a bigger question that I wasn't really prepared for tonight, but what will you sacrifice in order to succeed? And that's kind of the campaign I want to run. So it's kind of deep. And then I wrote some other stuff, but I should have led with the other challenge so that so I could have ended on that cool thought, but yeah. Anyway, plot hooks. Jumping over to my 30-day world challenge, we're getting to the end here, but there are evil races in your realm, such as Drow. And I want to say that the Tieflings are viewed as being evil because of their association with Pact's magic, but they're not necessarily evil. And that's a problem that Tieflings have in a lot of campaign settings. But innately evil races, I don't think exist in Endagar. Playable races, I should say. But I did want to point out that I've been thinking a lot about the inner ocean of Endagar, the water area. And I like that is very inhabited by Sahagwin. And maybe the Sahagwin are also... maybe Sahagwin are another version of the Verthandi. Maybe they're the Verthandi that never left the water. Maybe they're old sea elves that were changed. I haven't quite figured it out. And I feel bad. You're watching these videos and you're like, well, Jordan, figure it out. And you're not necessarily saying that, but the inner voice in my head is saying that. But I want them there, and that is a obstacle for creatures getting to that middle island. And so that's another reason that we don't necessarily go back and forth. And maybe there's some, there's offerings, there's trade, there's certain days you're allowed to go back and forth. But those who are not in the know don't travel the ocean because of fear of the Sahagwin. So innately evil, yes. I think the Sahagwin are going to be that innately evil race that exists in the waters there, strictly in the center ocean. That is where they populate. And we're going to have less crazy sea creatures in the center there. But just bloodthirsty. Like Sahagwin are... I ran Ghosts of Saltmarsh. And Sahagwin has a huge presence in that module. And they, between Blood Frenzy and the more you research them, I mean, they're just vicious. And to have a societal structure that is, I don't know, just tear you apart limb from limb kind of a thing. But still having cities. So we're going to do Sahagwin. This is a much shorter video. Thank you for understanding. But it is very late, and I just needed to play some D&D and get out of the house for the evening. So that is what I did. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode on my 30-day world challenge. Thank you. Thank you, patrons. Thank you so much for being awesome. I've been chatting in the Discord. It's been really good to have you guys all there. And so answering questions when I can. There's been talk of doing an Ask Me Anything about Endagar, and I think I like that idea a lot. And so I think maybe New Year's Eve, maybe sometime in January, I'll schedule out like 2 or 3 hours to do a live stream, and you guys could come to that live stream and just ask me any question. And while you ask questions, that will be a good way of figuring out the rest of the world. So, because ultimately one question is going to lead to another, and people have interesting ideas. And so I will be able to go through and say, yes, there is a Sahagwin city, or, the universe operates like this. So I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I think it would be a really good capstone to this series. So, maybe 10 or 11 days from now. So stay tuned. Thank you guys again. I will see you all tomorrow, and be safe and be awesome. Take